I just want to add to the first exam comment. That was one of the concerns people had at North Peace, was how would all these students do on provincial exams, and across the board they did equally as well as their peers at the main high school, and better for the most part. The other thing that happened that was quite phenomenal was attendance was up considerably for all students who went to project-based learning. And I do encourage you to go to YouTube and watch the video, because when the teachers in the video speak about their experiences, it really alleviates some of the concerns people have around students who may not do well. Collaboration amongst the teachers is done regularly, so when you have 4 teachers who are working with a group of students and they're talking about each student's needs regularly, it's much easier to meet the needs, as opposed to in a huge high school where people are working in isolation. You may not know that that child is struggling in the class that is before you, but in this model, you know where the student strengths are and where they may need to have some challenges and need some more support.
And also, I just want to point out, part of my role here at Denver is I'm an admin support teacher, and so I'm in a lot of classes, and I see a lot of teachers doing different things. And what I think this has done is inspired personalized learning as in a way of looking at a new way of teaching. So although the project is going to be amazing, but even if you're not a part of the project, the philosophy is spreading throughout our school. So it's the personalizing of the learning that is really exciting. And actually, a colleague, Sean Walsh over here, he's doing it in grade 6, 7 classroom. And I think it's just a new way of looking at how we're going to teach, not specifically only in, a project-based setting only.
Thanks, Lacey, for the segue. I'm just going to stand up because I'm like a PE guy. I like to move around. I've been listening to sort of what everyone's saying. It just keeps, like, I was sort of running out of gas, and this is just like refueling my energy to keep going with personalized learning. So I hear a question over here from a parent. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Oh, sorry,
Marnie says, so they're just going to get thrown into a project, and that's a great question. And you're saying, well, don't forget about what's been done in the past. That's another great question. I'm sort of trying to wrap all this together. Will they be thrown into a project if they want to? Do they have to go in groups of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if they want to? When I start a project, I say, your group can be between 1 and 7. I don't care. If you want to go and work with 2 groups. So I have one kid that likes to just bounce around. He's got a little bit of ADD. He works with every group and takes a little bit of piece from each group. And to speak on what you said was, don't forget about what happened in the past. And I agree, there's so many inspirations that we can take from their past. But what worries me is like what Robin said, when I walk around the school and I see desks lined up, it makes me want to cry, because that's how I was taught. And I'm sitting there watching this happen, and it makes me so angry that it's still happening. And we've had tons of examples of how to change, but it's not sticking. And that also makes me happy to hear that you guys are moving slowly, because you have to move slowly. You don't want to scare people into it. You want them to come to do it and get started with it because they're interested. So if you're afraid of it, it might not work for you. But if you like to be up there and you like to try to navigate your own learning and use your own ideas and your own passions, then it's the perfect thing. It's also great for me as a teacher, because I teach grade 7 French immersion. My French is quite good, but I'm not equipped to be a science French teacher at the grade 7 level, or math, or sex ed, etc. I have like 9 subjects on my report card. Very intimidating to me. With personalized learning, the students can tap into my strengths, and if I don't have the skills and talents that they need, they can tap into the internet, to their parents, other teachers in the school who I know are experts on reading and literature. It makes me feel more comfortable in my skin as a teacher, and therefore the kids feel the same way. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little upset, but it just, the passion's coming out.
Just wanted to add a few pieces. My 2 girls are quite young. They're not quite at this age group yet. But I work with a couple of programs on the side that are project learning based and community service learning based. And one of the things, just to touch on, there was a reference to the experience going from high school to university. And definitely that first year in university is one that's difficult for any student to go, because of the 400, the 600 student lectures and that kind of thing. What wasn't said, though, is that when you get to the later years, or especially at a master's and a PhD level, the entire program is problem or project based. I mean, and so students that come into that level often are really paralyzed if they've come from a traditional high school, because they get to this point where they're asked to come up with a problem, and that becomes the whole defining crux of a thesis, which is about doing the research, crossing disciplines, then communicating that in writing as well as in a presentation. And it can be really debilitating and paralyzing for a student who hasn't been exposed to something of this sort that's project-based, that's based on inquiry. And I think when I look at this, it's not about group work per se, even though it involves group work. It's really shifting learning so that learning is based on inquiry and asking questions, looking at a problem and and this is the other point I was just going to make, is that when we look at a problem or a question, it naturally crosses disciplines and boundaries. So this idea that knowledge is fragmented into science and math and English and so on is a very artificial one in our world, and we all know that. But when we look at a problem or ask a question, it necessitates that we look at math, at science, at arts. It's naturally interdisciplinary, and it's so implicit that no one's really kind of come out and said it that way. But it's one of the beauties of this approach as well, is it naturally helps young learners go beyond the fragmentation of knowledge that school has traditionally done for years and decades. So yeah, my compliments and encouragement to this initiative.
I have a question and a challenge, perhaps, for the administration, based on two things. First of all, when I look at the teachers who are here, there's the high energy. We've got teachers who are obviously passionate about what they're doing. And those are the teachers who are going to make this work. I think back to a grade 5 situation that one of my kids had, where the teacher, I think, was trying to do a bit of a project-based idea. Took the social studies textbook, divided it by 30, gave each kid 2.5 pages or whatever, and said, you teach the class on this, and then sat back. And literally that was the term, and I was very disappointed in that. But there was really nothing I could do. But it was a year which my child learned those 2.5 pages and didn't learn anything else because there wasn't enough. As administrators, your challenge will be to bring your entire staff to the energy level that's sitting in this room right now, and will you have the ability to do that? Will you have the freedom to do that within our current system?
What a great question.
It's not a popular question.
You know what? I think that's one of the reasons that the group that's here, we've chosen grade 8. We know that there are enough staff members who actually want to invest their time. They volunteered. So all the people who are here are prepared in 2014 to leave some present assignments that they're in, that they have worked hard to gain at the last 2 decades, to actually explore teaching in this type of a model. I think that as leaders, we've learned that you are never going to get every individual as part of what we're doing. And I think that, so we have to understand that initially. Not everyone's going to look at their way of teaching and how kids learn and change their pedagogy. However, I feel that I'm inspired after 8 months of being here in a team of leaders, and it's not just the admin team. I think that part of it is how do you I guess share that knowledge, how do you move it forward, and how do you build that energy? Because it's around sustainability, absolutely what you just said. But I think that what you made comment on was the one teacher working in isolation, trying something. This is working with a team of teachers collectively, and if you put them all together, there's not one here in this room that probably has less than 16 years of experience teaching. So I think that what we can be assured is that we're not going to get everyone, and I think that we understand that in any environment or any learning organization or any business organization, you're not going to get everyone to be working at optimal levels. But we can certainly get, I would say, and I'm going to look around this room, there's a lot of energy going on and a lot of interest and so many different pieces of this, that I would say in 3 to 5 years, I would say that we're going to have at least 60 to 70% of our teachers in Dover Bay who wants to invest, incorporate, explore a new way of looking at how to teach and their students learn in their classroom. Because it's not just Dover Bay who's looking at this. We have a district team who's looking at bringing in the research, and we also have, I think, a critique of public schools that has been going on in this province for the last decade. Am I right? I think we are, and we are. And so we know that as teachers in public schools that we have to look at our practice and how do we actually improve it. So we're not going to get 100%, but I think that overarching, many of us do an excellent job here at Dover Bay. And just as Bob made a comment on high-performing students in the school, and we just want to continue that. And I think the gentleman in the back, I'm glad we're videotaping this, because I think that he hit on some of the elements that are important and imperative. We want our kids to leave high school where they can actually engage in their community and solve, and this is something that 21st Century Learning really speaks about, is solve the complex problems that are in our world today. And that's what organizations, businesses, communities will be looking for. And so we have to be working together because we cannot do it individually. So I kind of answered your question but didn't, and made it broader. But we're not going to get everyone here, but I think that as an organization, we're certainly moving along.
It's just so we can
the blue light.
It's the lightsaber.
So my question is, if I've got a kid who's unlucky enough to get the teacher that doesn't want to be part of the 21st century learning, do they get to opt out of that teacher's class?
Well, how do you mean? In grade 8 or later on?
Oh, doesn't matter, whatever grade. If my kid gets a teacher that it's like, oh, I'm not teaching the 21st century way, my desks are going to be lined up, does he get a choice of going, I don't want this teacher then?
I can respond to that too.
I like to add a little piece after you.
Yeah. You know, as we do for all of our learners, we try to provide flexibility for all of them. I know that there are kids in classes who love it, embrace it. There are some kids who are saying, I don't want to be here, so I need to opt out. And so we have some systems in place, like Learn at Home. So we're not going to ever be perfect, and I think that part of it is that around where we're headed is to be able to give our children some voice in how they learn, so that they can convey that to their teacher in a very productive and constructive way. Because I think that part of, as what we do as teachers, we do need to hear from our students on how we learn. And as we certainly help to develop our students' skills in how to articulate how they learn best, I would hope that our educators would be able to listen to that and be able to move that along. So, you know, it's either or right now. I think right now, I mean, some of our kids don't even know what they're missing. So they're happy, some of them, productive, many of them, and constructive. But I think that what we have to do is provide choices, just as Bob made comment on, choices and ability for children to actually, bye girls, thank you for coming, be able to actually have a choice and a voice. And that's what 21st century learning is all about, choice and a voice. And I agree with you. Some of our teachers may not actually embrace this way of teaching and learning. And I think that we'll be struggling with that over the next decade.